So I want to welcome to the show today, Mike Rolewicz. Mike's checking in from, whereabouts in Florida are you?
I am in Ponte Vedra Beach, so a little bit southeast of Jacksonville. And any golf fans, if you watch the Players, which is kind of called the fifth major in golf, that is in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. That's at TPC Saltgrass.
Gotcha. Awesome. So thank you for jumping on today. I know you sent me an email and I was reading through your story. I get a lot of requests, but the thing that really jumped out for me with your story was how you've been able to have success so quickly, but also how you've come from, a lot of adversity. You've dealt with something a lot of people, not just in America, around the world, have had to deal with, and it's really, really difficult. And that's, the C word. And it affects so many people. I mean, cancer is just a bitch, right? No matter what way you
Yes.
look at it, you've fought it, you've beat it, you're here, you're being successful. So, I'm just really curious to sort of dive in, hear a bit more about your story. You've only been in real estate a year, but tell me a little bit about how you got into real estate and what you were dealing with in the build-up before you got into real estate, in your own words.
Okay. So yeah, the big C word, and I can tell you what I've translated that to a little bit later. To me, it's given me other C's in my life that have been awesome. But when I was diagnosed with a stage 3 base of tongue squamous cell carcinoma, so basically there was a tumor on the base of my tongue that I had no idea was there. Had a lymph node in my neck that felt just a little hard and didn't kind of understand why. Got out of the shower after I shaved, asked my wife, like, hey, what's going on here? It's like, yeah, it's a little hard. You might want to get it looked at. Didn't think anything about it. Made an appointment with the ENT. He's like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. You haven't had a cold. Why don't we just get a scan? We'll just be, abundance of caution. It could be this, could be that, but probably nothing. So I've got a good friend, radiation oncologist. I'm like, hey, Dwell, need your help. Going to get a scan. Going to freak out if I can't get the results before their radiologist reads it. So he calls me that night and says, yeah, good news, bad news. So good news is you have a very treatable form of cancer. The success rate for treatment, I mean, it's 80, 85+%. The problem is the course of treatment is just ridiculously brutal. So basically, right here, the entire side of my face was burned from the inside out. So all new skin, no salivary glands on one side. Just imagine the worst sore throat you've ever had, 10x it for about 3 months. So now I'm going to get super long-winded. So before I had that, I owned a staffing company that I started when I was 24 down in Jacksonville, did all that wrong too. Moved to an area I knew no one other than my business partner. Didn't have any industry experience, didn't do market analysis, just kind of a burn the boats mentality. So came down here, hung a shingle out, ran that. And when I went into treatment, I was already kind of starting to lose the fire in the belly for it. There wasn't this stirring to get up every day and be excited. So as I went through my treatment, it's just brutal on your body. The fatigue is ridiculous. I tried to go into I had an office, a team of 8 people, tried to go in during my treatment in between. So I went twice daily for radiation. So I'd go in the morning, try to go back to my office. I would just sleep. I couldn't do anything. And then as I was starting to recover, I guess I just watched too much HGTV. I don't know, but I was, me and my wife, we've lived in 7 different homes. Real estate's always been kind of a side kind of passion of ours. As I came back into my company, I realized 2 things. One, now the passion's gone. Like that little bit I had was gone. And second, fortunately, I built systems, and I credit the book Traction by Gino Wickman for helping me systematize, scale my business to where it ran really well without me. So probably towards the end of probably like mid part of 2017. So got diagnosed April of 2016, treatments, April and May, surgery in October, came back into my company like mid 2017. And when I came back in, I realized within a month, like I'm not feeling it. So kind of had to rolled over to the wife one night in bed and said, do you trust me? Do you trust that I can provide and really lose a comfortable thing, a pretty good thing we've got going, $4 or $5 million in revenue company so that I can do something that I feel like I'll be passionate about. And sold the company in February of 18 and was studying for my license during the due diligence process, and then got the license. Really activated it probably May, June of 2018 is kind of when I really got started. So super long answer, but that's kind of the journey.
And did you have, you started studying for your test. Did you take an online test? I mean, how did you get your license? And do you have any sort of mentors, anyone guiding you through this? Or was it just you and your idea?
It was my idea at that time. I mean, who doesn't know a realtor? So I kind of knew, realtors in this town. I never really turned to any of them as mentors really until I had the license to sort of say, hey, what should I be looking for in a brokerage? Because now I was going to go from entrepreneur to this kind of solopreneur, but I still have to operate within, the parameters of a brokerage. Signed up with Tom Ferry Coaching before I'd even sold the company, which was kind of stupid, but not really, because it kind of helped put some things in place and having that guidance, as I'm going through that brokerage decision. But I had a great mentor during my staffing days. And now, between my coach, the YLOPO community, the Tom Ferry ecosystem, YouTube, like there's no shortage of resources out there. You just got to make yourself open to them. And the reason I signed up for coaching, and my wife's like, why would you sign up for coaching? Like, you could be a coach. You ran a company. I'm like, 'cause I don't know what I don't know yet. So I feel that's been, helpful. And certainly these Facebook groups, the success community, the Tom Ferry system, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Florida Network Realty. There's so much you can take in. It's just a matter of applying it. That's where a lot of people miss it. There's this thirst for knowledge, but a real problem with implementation.
Yeah. Okay. So just going back a little bit, how's the diagnosis today with the cancer since, we've moved on, a couple of years down the road now?
All good. So with the kind that I had, the radiation is a very good course of treatment. They're actually probably going to de-escalate the way they treat this type of cancer, use more protons, use stuff that's just not as just ridiculously invasive. Like I lost close to 40 pounds in a month and a half, just I couldn't eat.
Wow.
But no, the only lingering effects I've got something called Horner syndrome. So when I sweat, this half of my face sweats, this half does not. So I look like Braveheart. And then dry mouth, those type things. But in terms of the chance of it recurring, very, 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 very small after 2 years. And I'm 3 years out. So super blessed there.
Fantastic. All right. So I want to make sure we're all clear with that.
We're all good.
Good. All right. So, the other thing that's just really blown me away is your production in the last year, basically your first year in the business. I mean, you've sold, how many are you going to end up with this year?
With what I'm sitting on pending, it's either going to be 29 or 30 and just about 12 million in sales volume.
Wow.
That's calendar 2019.
So commission-wise for you, what do you end up walking away with?
GCI is like 320 something ish. So, and I told my wife, I said, look, my goal is within 3 years in real estate, I will top the best year I ever had with the staffing company. And there was really good years for a while there. So I've got kind of a high bar set for myself. And now I'm in this kind of middling spot of, okay, I hired an assistant, a month and a half ago, which has been tremendously helpful. Like I got to figure out what's that next thing. Is it team, no team? Is it buyer's agent? So, because you kind of get to that point, and I think where burnout comes in real estate, you start with a hobbyist. They just kind of do it and sell 2 or 3 homes and it's cool. They can say they're a realtor. Then you get folks that are they're getting there, maybe getting the double digit units production, a couple mil a year. And yeah, I got to a point this summer, and that was really every coaching call was about, this is not sustainable. Like, I'm seeing the future and it's not overly bright. It's like something's got to give. So it's kind of where I am now, is trying to figure out what is that next thing. The assistant has been hugely helpful. So she's doing transactional work, marketing work. When I'm doing expired calls, she's sending out all the material and kind of keeping track of those folks and tracking them for me so I know who to follow up with.
So I'm curious, not being in the industry, having such success so early on, where are you getting all the business from? I mean, how are you generating the leads, and what are you using for leverage?
So kind of the pillars have been, Zillow is probably number one. Again, I'm able to come in a much different situation than most people that come into real estate. Two reasons for that. One, I operate from a business owner mentality, not a sales mentality. And also being able to use check equity versus sweat equity, which is to go into a Zillow zip code, Jacksonville Beach, and buy leads. And I've been fortunate. And again, I think if the follow-up doesn't happen, it's still, you can buy all the leads you want. If you don't know how to nurture and grow rapport with folks and build relationships, which is what I was missing in my staffing company, it's not going to come to fruition. But there was a $1.3 million condo, $1 million house, a couple $300,000 to $400,000 deals from that. So that's lead pillar one. Second would be kind of the online leads, the YLOPO, the Facebook, more top of funnel. A couple of those have fallen down the funnel, and I've been able to close some of those transactions this year. And then Sphere, which is, folks from my staffing days. So a CEO that I worked with owns a big electric company, sold him a beach condo, listed their multi-million-dollar river home recently. And this weekend, got my mother and father-in-law under contract in a 55 plus community. So, it's kind of come from everywhere. It's been a little buyer heavy, and that's another part of the leverage discussion there. And certainly is, how do I leverage time better? And I think the way to do that is to, either shift some of that buyer traffic to a buyer's agent, or I prefer I'm just an and guy versus an or guy. Work the listing side a lot more. So I've kind of dug back into Vulcan 7, making expired calls, and just kind of keeping an eye on things that are popping off the market and seeing what I can do. And I mean, you want a wild story? I was running my son to a skateboard park and noticed some people up and down my street that were kind of stopped at vacant lots. So I'm coming back, and I'm just gonna get out of my car and talk to these people. And I'm in like fishing clothes. Like, I'm a mess. I'm no way I should be going out presenting myself as a realtor. And they were happy to be looking for vacant land. The husband owned a condo that is going to be live on the market a week from tomorrow. And just straight up, it's not door knocking. It's just walking up to somebody walking around a vacant lot and just kind of getting their story.
You got their listing from that?
Yeah. Listing is, $375,000 in a very sought after area condo, because they're buying a lot. Now, they're not buying a lot through me. They already had an agent down a little south of me, which is fine. It's okay. But that's what I'm realizing more and more, is just start having conversations. And, this was an easy one because they were looking at real estate. But when people hear you're in real estate, the questions are going to kind of follow. Hey, how's the market? What are you seeing? My neighborhood, nothing sells. Why do you think that is? Or, everything sells in my neighborhood super fast. Why? Or they'll tell you usually.
So you mentioned earlier on when we were talking, your database now is around 800-ish. Is that right?
Yeah, that's really only leads that have come in. That does not include the Sphere. So shame on me. I need to import my Sphere into YLOPO. That I know for a fact.
Yeah.
And also the AdWorks campaign. But no, that 800, that's been the Facebook lead gen and the Zillow leads. And some of those Zillow were the live connect. Others were just where, they just kind of click, and I don't know if it gets assigned to multiple agents or just me or what. But so that's in a little over a year, that's kind of what it's built to. And I've got to also systematize touch points and everything for those folks.
Yeah, you sound like very, very organized. You've had a lot of experience in business. I'm just curious, what does a typical day look like for you? Like a successful day? I mean, do you have it structured where you call at a certain time? Are you very regimented, or are you kind of going with the flow? I mean, tell me a little bit about a day for you.
Probably too much go with the flow. And I think that when you're a buyer's agent, that's kind of what happens. You just become a slave to the urgent. So, a killer day for me is up, 5:30 or 6 o'clock. First thing, get to the gym, like get the sweat going, get the full brave heart, get the half the face red. And days I do that, I just know I feel better. The only exception to that is if the tide is just perfect in the morning, I'm going fishing. Like that's I clears my mind, whatever that kind of looks like. Um, Try not to really check email until I'm kind of leaving the gym or back home, to see kind of what's happened overnight. Breakfast, looking at the hot sheets every single morning. Like first thing is just to see, all right, what's come on? Is there anything that interests a buyer of mine? And there have been deals that have come from that, and nurturing that's come from that. Like, hey, Aaron, I know you're not looking now, but I know you like this neighborhood. Or if I know somebody's looking to sell down the road and I see a listing in their neighborhood, I'm going to send it. It's just a great excuse. So that's maybe 30, 40 minutes kind of digging through that, shooting out some listings that might matter to some folks. And then lately I've been trying by 9:30, 10 at the latest, is getting into a Vulcan dial session with at least probably 30, 40 queued up. Hour and a half, sometimes longer, just depending how many people you can catch on the phone. Then share that information with my assistant. Hey, here's who I talked to. Here's who I left messages for, so she knows kind of the scripting and what to send.
What do you use? Sorry, what do you use as a CRM system to manage all your leads?
So Lion Desk is on the buyer side, and really the expireds are just kind of sitting in Vulcan 7 in their CRM, which it works. It does what it needs to. And again, with the assistant, it's helped because she's tagging them in certain ways, so I can kind of sort and find what I need. And then afternoons are usually set for appointments. Like today at 1, I had a walkthrough for a closing tomorrow with the Ylopo lead, and also the new listing I took from the people I kind of stalked as they were walking lots on my street. Drop some stuff off at his house. We're redoing lighting, going to switch out some door handles, so those type things. And then showings, closings, sometimes some phone call follow-up. Like this morning, there's probably 3 or 4 expireds that I really, really want. So those people are going to get hit again when we get off of this call for sure. And that'll, take me pretty much to 5, 6 o'clock. And then I try to kind of shut it down, but it doesn't always happen, especially when family is your client. So, so that's kind of a perfect day for me. Is I feel like days where I don't either exercise or prospect. It's like, like it's not. This cannot become a pattern. This has to be just an aberration. And this summer I was very transaction heavy. I mean, I had 4 and 5 deals pending at any given time, and I didn't have an assistant. So you can imagine between inspections, getting it to the closing table, dealing with all the various parties, insurance and inspections, appraisal and all that. So being able to offload that has been tremendously helpful as a time lever to pull me back to where I want to be, which is building relationships. That's the game.
Yep. What are the couple of big things you think you're going to implement in your business that can make a big difference for you in 2020 to help you level up? I mean, what are you looking to do?
Leverage my assistant even more. I think there's more that she could be doing. kind of helping with expired marketing and those type things. So that would certainly be one.
Is she, sorry, before it's just so
Yeah.
I'm clear, is she local or is she offshore?
She's actually local. She's a licensed realtor that does not like selling real estate. So she supports me. She supports another agent in our Atlantic Beach office. And I actually just introduced her to someone else because it's not a full-time need for me yet. Hopefully it gets to that point. So, I think I'll probably end the year, like I said, around 12 or so million. So the goal next year is 16. To get there, 20 expired listings is right in front of me. They're in visual. So I'll be, knocking those off as I get through them. Average price point here is around $500,000. So if I can do that, okay, there's 10 of it. Now I just got to come up with the other 6, which I think if I keep doing what I'm doing, Sphere, Zillow, I'm going to certainly keep that spend, bringing on a new lender partner that's helping with that. And Ylopo, I have a lender partner that's going to help with that spend also. And again, that was just Zillow right there. See that? Let it go to voicemail. I'm going on vacation next week. So that'll be it. And I've got 2 agents in my office that have kind of approached me and seen the volume, because it's like, how the hell? Like, how does this guy get these ribbons? Like, I'm always working. Is maybe, bring on sort of a buyer's agent, or, kind of funnel some of that buyer traffic off of me at either price point, or determine it by, kind of location where it doesn't make sense for me. And, I think that's a way to kind of lever myself.
And coaching wise, you going to stick with the same coach, or you feel like it's time to get a new coach? I mean, how?
No, I've got the right guy.
Yeah.
So he's like a CrossFit maniac. Like, he's up every morning. He's doing marathons and triathlon. He's crazy. South Florida. He's the right guy for me, for sure. Because I need somebody very strong D is what I am. Decisive, ready, aim, fire. I'm that guy. Or ready, fire, aim, I should say. So he's been really helpful to kind of rein me in. And also, when I was transaction heavy, and it's not that I'm light right now, especially for this time of year, but when it was like buck wild in the summer, that's where he's like, you cannot continue this pace. Something's going to break down.
Yeah.
Things are going to fall through the cracks. The level of service that you want to provide, you're not going to be able to, and it's going to suffer somewhere along the way, or like your family's just going to leave you. It's like, okay, that doesn't seem awesome either. So that's kind of been the focus, and really the reason I really enjoy that coaching program is that sort of accountability, and all right, Mike, keep in your lane here. Yep. But he's still wants aggressive growth and everything else. It's just, how do we do it the right way?
Right. Yeah, he sounds like a great coach. Are you allowed to share his name, or you want to keep it under wraps?
No. He's Luis Padilla. He's got a Remax operation down in South Florida. And actually, me and the family are going to go to South Florida over Christmas. And he and I are going to certainly break bread and maybe even get the families together. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, yeah, that's, amazing story. What would you say is your biggest sort of learning moment for the year? If you could look back at the end of this year and the big aha moment, or anything that really clicked for you that, over the year?
It was really breaking down and hiring the assistant, because part of when I sold my company, I had had it up to here with the headaches of having employees. So I operated in a temp agency. So at any given week, we may have 80 to 200 temporary employees out in the field. So there's issues that they have, and, call outs and you name it. And then you've got your team of 8 in the office. And I just, you get this, I can never do enough for them. There's just this, it was tough. So when I sold the company, I told my wife, I said, do not let me hire anybody for 5 years. Like, I'm just going to do this. I know I'll be successful. I know people in this town. I can sell. I know how to build relationships, but I'm not hiring anybody. Like, that ain't me. And then less than a year in, first my coach is in my ear, and then my wife's in my ear a little bit. Like, can I help? Like, what can we do? How can we make this work better? It's like, okay, so that was an aha moment. And really the second, and part of it is just this transaction, is realizing, wow, even though you've got one side of a transaction, you better make friends with everyone in that transaction. This one had a staging company, had a tenant in there that we needed out at a certain time because my client's schedule is just, it's bananas. Well, the way this contract was written was one thing. The listing agent told us, no, it's no big deal. So we set a closing date that we can't meet. So then I got to go have coffee with the staging company and figure out, okay, what's it going to take to get them out so that my people can move in. And then you got, a seller that's out of town for a mail away, like realizing, and I think having a transaction coordinator will help, because though I've done 20 something this year, it's like all I've ever done. So she's been doing this for some top performing teams and agents in the market for years. So having that person to lean on to hopefully catch some of those issues before they get there has been super helpful.
So overall, you're extremely happy, I can take it, by moving into real estate in your first year, and just hungry for more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is kind of that what is the big C with cancer? I think it gave me a couple things. Clarity. There is nothing else that will give you clarity about what God has called you to do than when he has humbled you and just broken you. And as I was coming out of it, I just this stirring was like, this can't be it. Like I can't go back on this hamster wheel. So there was clarity, courage to leave something, and that's the third C, is comfort. Like, get out of your comfort zone. I'm 49 years old. Like, that's not when most people decide, hey, I'll just stop what I'm doing and I've known for 20 plus years and go into something totally different. And that's the gift that I think cancer gave me, which is crazy to think that. But I mean, I know for a fact I much prefer doing video walkthroughs on Instagram of sick ass homes in my market or listings I'm taking, and being able to, consult with a homeowner and say, hey, Donna, here's what we need to do. And I'm going to send you some lighting options, and my wife's going to come help stage your place. Like, that's what I enjoy doing, versus going to the office and being pushed so far away from kind of the 3-foot conversations that you have in real estate. That's what I was missing in the staffing world. We would deal with a hiring manager or maybe HR, but were they really the person we needed to talk to really be able to convey to a candidate, hey, here's what they want, or here's why it's a great either place to work or position. So to be able to just kind of have the courage to say, look, I know, we only get one lap around here. So if you get an opportunity somewhere, don't be ridiculous and just be like, well, I'll just, well, maybe do be ridiculous. Because when I started my first company, 24, no money, no experience, you just kind of have to have faith in yourself to just, get after it. And I think getting the right brokerage, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services was a great fit for me. If it were purely financial, like the splits are terrible to start, but now they're great because they reward their top producers. But the training was great. The culture is great. We've got an office, mostly of people that are full-time agents. We have some hobbyists, every brokerage does, but I feel like, we're always kind of chasing that brass ring versus just, yeah, come hang your license. So that, I think, was hugely helpful as a springboard also.
Would you, what sort of personality type? I mean, obviously you've been incredibly successful, but I think a lot of that is because, and actually before I ask that question, do you feel like if you didn't get cancer, would you still be in the old job and miserable?
I absolutely fear I would have.
Yeah.
And
Sounds
that's
like
when
it.
I went to my wife. I said, I don't know if it was the cancer or I'd kind of been kind of in that, it was just this real Groundhog Day existence. It was, you go in, you do a little bit, you do some of this, so disengaged. And if the owner's not engaged, it's really hard to have engaged employees. I've got a neighbor lives up the street. This guy's company has been on, Forbes and local best places to work forever. Okay, this guy sold his company for gobs of money. I said to him, I'm like, Dwight, why aren't you fishing all the time or doing whatever it is you love? He's like, I'm just on fire to do what I do and to build this company and all that. And, that discussion also kind of resonated. That ain't the passion I've got, at this point. And I couldn't kind of refine it, because I would have had to just blow up my company almost. Just kind of totally just out with the old, in with the new, redefine the culture and all that. And you also get to a point, I was self-aware enough to know, okay, the company grew to a certain level with me. It kind of teetered a little above, a little below, but it never kind of broke through. And I just don't think my calling was to be, business owner to scale a company the way, let's say, that neighbor did, or some others. I just love getting to know people, kind of figuring out their stories, and now kind of figuring out how real estate fits in and how I can kind of help guide them. That's how I view myself. I'm a guide. I'm just making sure we're not hitting no class 5 rapids. And this last transaction, man, I'm paddling all sorts of different ways and trying to figure out, like, how do I get the stager out? And wait a minute, who gets to remove these trees in the backyard? But through all that stress, when you get the outcome, that's when it's all worth it.
So given that you're very self-aware, I'm just curious, what's the end goal for you? Because there's so much you can do in real estate, but you obviously you don't need to kill yourself to get massive success. Are you just looking to, build a moderate amount of, what's a 5-year plan? I'm just for you.
There's a lot to that. So this year we had an office condo and I had the staffing company. We sold that, bought an investment property that we're using right now as kind of it's like a corporate rental almost. So we furnished it. We were going to Airbnb it. Local municipalities have kind of frowned upon that. So now I had clients that sold a condo on the ocean and bought a house with me, but they needed 2 or 3 months to renovate it. I'm like, great. I have a great little bungalow you can stay in. And then they moved out. Another agent in my office have clients relocating, so they're living that. So, kind of investing more in real estate and maybe more just pure, that passive income play, just doors, duplexes, quadplexes, whatever that might look like. And really, I want to be the go-to person kind of up and down A1A, which is right along Jacksonville, Atlantic, Neptune, and Ponte Vedra Beach. So that's the 5-year goal, is to become the absolute knowledge broker agent of choice in that area. And I'll have to unseat some people, but so be it. I had to do that with my staffing company to survive. So I don't know that I'm ever going to have a team of, 10 agents or anything like that. Because again, I don't know it's my gifting or that I'd even enjoy the process as much, because I really, really do love the 3-foot conversation. That's what I enjoy doing. And fortunately, I'm extremely frugal. I'm very kind of focused on delayed gratification. So, when I sold my company, I could have taken 5 years off and done nothing, and been okay. But that's just not who I am. Like, there's only so many fish you can catch. So, that's when a lot of people are like, man, you're not like taking time off. Like, you just came out of all this. I'm like, no, because that's part of the message. Like, time's limited. Like, let's get after it.
I love it. I love it. It's such a great message, incredibly powerful. So look, I know you're short on time. You're getting ready to take off for Thanksgiving. So I appreciate it. Let me get this thing published and out to everyone to share and learn.
Sounds awesome. And go Ravens.
Oh, come on.
It's New Hampshire, and I'm from Baltimore. I got to, man.
Yeah, so our Rams kind of sucked this year. So
Any given Sunday, or in this case Monday night, you never know what could happen. But I like the Ravens' chances tonight.
yeah, yeah, I do too. You're probably gonna kick our ass.
Here's hoping. But no, I definitely appreciate the time and have me on, because like I said, I'm not really that rags to riches story. I was more broken physically than broke. But I think it's still,
Still,
everybody gets that point where it's like, okay, something's got to give. What's it going to be?
yeah, it's still a roller coaster ride. It's a lot of everyone's I have had on the show. There's a lot of stuff they have in common. They're just dealing with the ups and downs and how they've dealt with that. And you've certainly done that and done it very well. So it was fantastic. So appreciate it.
All right, appreciate it. Take care.
All right, you got it. Bye bye.